Barbara, I'm really pleased to meet you again.
Thank you.
We had this moment together in May at the Building the New World conference in Virginia. And at that time, we had a moment to speak together the evening, actually an entire night to speak together, as I remember.
Yes.
And you're aware of the fact that I come from this community in Damanhur. And I'm very interested in your perception of community, the importance of community, and how that the work that you've been doing relates to the formation of sustainable community.
It's essential for human nature to live in community. And what happened in this culture recently is the extended family disappeared. My extended family disappeared. You know, I got married, I had 5 children, then I moved them to Washington, and then all the children went somewhere, and then all the grandchildren went somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And I'm now 86 years old. And I thought, wait a minute, where are they all?
Where's my clan? Where'd they go?
I have to travel here, there,
right.
and elsewhere to see any of them. And we didn't have a family center. And I began to realize, this is on my own personal life, that I could not live without community. Mm. But because my extended family was gone and I didn't want to go into a retirement home because I'm not retired, I'm actually evolving every moment, I then decided I have to create something myself that is a seed of the kind of community that I would like. And I think it's related to Damanhur, because it's a community for co-creation of the future of humanity. And it's a place where people who are in Berkeley, who are already emerging toward their own process of creation, will come to share, to create fellowship, to create love and visions together. So everybody that I've mentioned this to recently has said, could I come there? Mm. Is there a room for me? Mm. Could I possibly live with you? I said, well, I don't think we have room for everybody. But what I noticed for myself, and for everybody that I know, particularly older people whose families have no longer holding together, is we all need it. And it's not so easy to start up a community from scratch.
No, it's not.
Not at all. And so one of the reasons that I was kind of stuck is I do so much on internet and so much on communication of teaching, but the people aren't here.
Right, right.
So I would say the question in modern culture is how do you create community if you don't already have one? And then Damanhur, of course, is way an advanced community that would be almost impossible to do a startup in that mode.
Right, right.
Even though it can totally inspire us about it.
So Barbara, as you know, Damanhur is a 40-year-old community, and I'm very interested in your perception of having done the work that you've done on what creates a successful community, and your definition of a sustainable community using the wheel of co-creation, what your perception of Damanhur is and how it relates to that model that you've defined.
Well, what I realized in modern culture in general, not only has the extended family disappeared for many people, but we're all in silos. Here's art, here's government, here's science, here's spirituality, and we live in silos without extended family. It's very unnatural, the whole thing. So in my own work, starting in the 1970s in Washington, D.C., with a partner who was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and he'd been doing live coverage of the space program, we decided, how do you look at a long-range goal for humanity in our culture? And we thought it should be an Earth-based human development program. We should take all the high-technology genius that had gone into the lunar landing and bring the techno-industrial community into restoring the Earth, freeing the people, exploring the universe, and making a whole new culture. So in order to get that done, I first went to Congressman Olin Teague of the Science and Technology Committee in the Congress. And he was loving the space program. And I said, Congressman Teague, we would like you to have the Congress look at the implications for the whole system of a new Earth space goal with all this high tech. You have all these different committees in Congress. I'd like you to ask them, what would be the effect on economics, on politics, on health, a goal of this order which would really create new worlds on Earth, new worlds in space. Well, he was totally for it. He said, Barbara, this is the best thing I ever heard, but I can't do it because the Congress cannot come together and look at anything as a whole.
Wow.
You do it, he said. I said, me? Who should do it? Something ridiculous. So, but with John Whiteside, my partner from the Air Force, we decided that we would create a new structure for people to come together to look at their own goals and the larger goals of humanity, and we drew a wheel. And we started to do this on the back of napkins. Here's health, here's education, here's business, here's all the people who said, I'm for it, but the other people won't get it.
Uh-huh.
So let's say the business people would, I'm for it, but you'll never get the military to agree. Then you talk to the military, we really get it, but you won't get the politicians. Mm. So we started to go to all these people, and John said, let's put them all in the wheel. So I went around and created the first Synergistic Convergence Conference at Southern Illinois University.
And what year was this?
It was 1972.
Wow. Okay.
And I had to get people into the wheel. And I would say, like I went to the head of the science and tech. No, I went to the Ambassador Lazar Moisov, head of the Security Council of the United Nations. So I went to his office in New York, and I said, I would like to invite you to a Synergistic Convergence Conference in Southern Illinois University. What? Why? Where? So I asked this question of each person, well-known or not well-known. I said, are you satisfied with the way things are going for you? Now, do you think they were satisfied at the United Nations, the way the Security Council was going? Absolutely not.
Right.
So I said, why don't you come and see if there's a better way? And I got lawyers in there, I got Black Power leaders in there, I got students, and we all gathered in the wheel in Southern Illinois University. It was built by the students. There was a little spiral staircase in the hub and removable walls. And we had a microcosm of society in a wheel. And I invited quite a lot of well-known people, and we had growing edge capabilities in science and technology and biology. And each group said, this is what we want to create. This is what we need. These are the resources we want to share. And gradually we took walls down until we had an all-wall down event at Southern Illinois University, coming together as an assembly of the whole. And I'll get to Damanhur in a moment. The way we did it was so great. I mean, Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, came in and he saw us doing this. And he said, if you had had a spiritual Geiger counter while you were taking the walls down and bringing a modern society together, you would have gone off the charts spiritually.
Wow.
But we didn't even mention the word spiritual.
Right.
It was whole. And of course, the root of the word religion is re-lagare, bind back and make whole. So the wheel binds back and makes whole a community that's fractured. And if you asked anything in that community of what people need, what resources they could share, you found so much more creativity, so much more energy, so much more capability. So John and I did 25 of these events. And I began to think it was the beginning of synergistic democracy. That win-lose liberal democracy, as it is in the United States and elsewhere, actually is a win-lose model. It's designed for defeat. A whole portion, half of the public has to be defeated in order for somebody to win. So I began to feel that what we had learned in the wheel of synergistic wheel co-creation and in those conferences was the beginning of democracy and also community. So the way the wheel can be used now is by inviting your neighbors from every sector of society. You could go into a town meeting in the round, and instead of win-lose voting, how do you co-create? So Damanhur, from what I understand of it, of course, the most amazing genius founded it. So you can't just say this is what anybody could do. And nobody else could do it.
We have a visionary leader.
You have
Alberto Araldi, Falco.
And then you had the incredible art that nobody could believe was done underground by ordinary people. So there's no way to compare Damanhur with
And beginning in 1972.
what other people are doing.
I find it significant that while you were here building a new story,
Yes.
on the ground in Italy was a group of founders who were bringing that into fruition.
Exactly.
And that doesn't feel accidental to me.
So you were a tremendous intensification of what I was exploring in a kind of generalized manner. And so coming together with the intensification of Damanhur, with the need in modern culture, let's take the United States, it's tragic to see the split in our society and the inability to cooperate. When you have a climate change issue, you have a crisis on planet Earth that needs nothing but greater community and greater cooperation.
So you were doing this work in the 70s, and how is that sustained? Now we're 40 years later, and how is that sustained? And
it wasn't. What happened to me, I did 25 of these. I paid for them out of my own inheritance. We did not have a business model, and it wasn't a permanent community anywhere. It was conferences. So structurally, it wasn't sustainable. And I stopped. And then I went into teaching on Shift Network and other kinds of teaching. But now what's happened is I'm beginning to return I'm going forward. And one of the things I'm going forward towards is to do a major teaching on what I'm calling a planetary awakening, connecting co-creators worldwide through a unique self-symphony, which is unique beings coming together to make a planetary awakening. And as I do this on a internet and meta scale, communities are going to form again of people who are excited to do this. So actually, I'm at my turn of the spiral, going my next step to state the vision, have the wheel available on internet, and have people localize the wheel where they live. And I've decided to use the last 4 to 5 years of my life to fulfill whatever I can towards this vision. Because right now, there is no great vision in our modern society. There really is, I would say, no new process of democracy, even though it's in little places everywhere. And as a visionary, it seems to me the best thing I can do is state the vision clearly with a way for people to participate.
So this brings us to this subject of mission. And I mean, in your life, I mean, as a child and growing up, did you feel you had a sense of a defined mission? Or have you grown into this as you've
I'll tell you, I got it. I had a very happy childhood. My father was entrepreneurial. He was a toy maker. Everything was great. Power was great. Money was great. Military was great. Everything. When the U.S. dropped the bombs on Japan, now that, I was 15 years old and I had this huge wake up. Oh, if we use all this new power in a state of self-centered consciousness, we'll destroy the world. And I had to question, this became my mission. The question arose, what is the meaning of the new power of humanity that is good? What are images of the future equal to our spiritual, social, and particularly scientific, technological, industrial power?
So you were 15 years old,
yes,
and you were processing this thought.
This question. Now, I thought somebody knew. What's the meaning of the new power that's good? And so first I tried to join the church. And I went down to the local Episcopal church in Scarsdale, New York, and I said to the minister, is any of this true? You know, the resurrection, the ascension, the promise, you will do the work that I do and greater works. Oh, so I said, this is really wonderful. How are we going to do this? And he said, young lady, you go to Sunday school. So in Sunday school, I realized that the real problem was Eve. Can you believe that story that they were telling was the woman who had the desire for more knowledge was the source of the problem? So I left the Episcopal Church at that time, and then I went to Bryn Mawr College to see if I could find out the meaning of our new power that's good. There was no course anywhere near the future of civilization. there was no philosopher that you could read that would give you a sense of the new power.
And did you have a vision of what that future looked like at that point?
No. Except I intuitively, because I have an evolutionary soul, I thought it was to enhance the capability, power, and meaning of evolution and life itself. I thought it was good, but I didn't see any use of it that was good. And so then I met with President Eisenhower, who was a friend of my father's. He'd just become president of the United States, in the Oval Office, and I say, Mr. President, I have a question. Yes. What do you think is the meaning of all our new military industrial power that's good? He said, I have no idea.
Wow.
So the mission that I got was to find out.
And where did you feel that mission? What do you think the source of that sense of mission was?
I think it was and is the impulse of creation itself, the evolutionary impulse that comes from source, that for billions of years has been building more complex conscious systems. That impulse, that core of the creative intelligence of the universe is in every one of us.
And what allowed you to touch that, though?
I'll tell you, vocation.
Okay.
If you don't have any vocation, you can be mystical, you can be one with it, but in order for it to be an evolutionary impulse in you, you need to find your calling. You need to find what is your expression. And when I got very depressed when I was just with the 5 children, and much as I loved everybody, it wasn't my vocation. And through Teilhard de Chardin mainly, and Sri Aurobindo and other Buckminster Fuller, those were my 3. I realized this impulse inside me for more life, more creativity, more freedom, more goodness, was the evolutionary impulse. So I and the impulse are one. Everybody is one, but you have to find a vocational calling or mission in order for the impulse to become alive in you. So when I found a life purpose, which basically is to tell the story of the birth of humanity as a co-created species, I discovered that, then the impulse turned on, and it never has stopped. And what I'm finding is it gets deeper and more active. I'm 86 years old, and I think I'm regenerating because my mission has grown stronger, and I and the mission are one now. It's not that I have a mission. I am the mission.
And this was the moment that we first met. And I said to you, we've put out a call for storytellers. You know, I'm looking for the storytellers in the world. And specifically, this core group of storytellers who have this connection from the future.
Yes.
So you've spoken to me about your sense of a connection with something in the future that's drawing us forward.
Yeah.
Can you speak a bit about that connection for you?
Well, when I'll tell you how I got this idea. I asked the universe, what story could we tell comparable to the story of the birth of Christ? And I had been reading Reinhold Niebuhr on the story, and all people are members of one body. And I wasn't saying this as a Christian. I was saying this as someone who needed to tell the story. So I got an experience of the story. I became like an astronaut. I could feel Earth as a living system, struggling, running out of breath, pain going through the nervous system. And in this flashing experience, I experienced stopping through the pain, an empathy coursing through the planetary body. I felt the people hearing from within the inner voice of spirit in their own language. The walls of the religions came down. I felt the healing that people had in the resonant field. And then I had the wheel appeared, a Buckminster Fuller type thing. We have the resources, technology, and know-how to make the world work for everyone. And I got what it feels like on the planet when all the creative initiatives are connected as in a living system. Like your body, you have a heart, a liver, a stomach. So we have a planetary body, and I felt the body come together. I felt all the creative capacities, and I felt the empathy and love. And then what happened in that moment is I felt the lights approaching planet Earth, that we were being born. And I heard the words, our story, that Christ and all the other great avatars came to tell us. Our crisis is the birth of a universal humanity. Go tell the story, Barbara. So I got a unique life purpose. The mission was, what's the meaning of our power? The meaning is we're being born as a co-evolving, co-created species. And we are in a universe filled with life. And once we know this, we'll start making contact. And then I was given the opportunity to go back to the origin of creation. And in like a flashing instant, I went through the Big Bang, the hydrogen, and all the formation of the galaxies, life, and all the way on up to us. And I woke up from that flash in a planet, giving birth to new life as evolution.
Mm.
And what the words I heard is, Barbara, you are evolution becoming conscious of itself. Everyone is evolution, but very few are yet conscious that they are. So I developed a worldview called conscious evolution, where the first species on Earth aware of evolution, where we're affecting it by everything we do, and even deeper, we are evolution. And if we are evolution, we are the impulse of the divine incarnate as us, creating. So that's who we are. And when that becomes true en masse on the planet, when enough people feel that and connect that way, we will be a new species, and we will find we're not alone in the universe.
And this is what most excites me. My mission, and I went through an awakening that was not dissimilar, was in my journey from leaving this very material world of Los Angeles and moving to Damanhur, which is very much an esoteric community.
Yes.
But over a 40-year period, Falco, the founder of the community, had given to the community pieces of this story of humanity, starting at that moment of the Big Bang and going forward to 3,000 years in the future, where we know there's a time island.
Mm-hmm.
And he hadn't told a story. He hadn't set everyone down and told this story as a cohesive mythology. He had given pieces of it over 40 years.
I see.
With the expectation that the community would elaborate those pieces. And when I began to work with the community, what I discovered in our archive was the most cohesive, comprehensive story of humanity that I'd encountered anywhere in the world.
All the way from the beginning into the future.
From the beginning into the future. And it hadn't been stitched together. It had never existed in one place where you could walk into a room and look at this story on the walls of that room, because it's not a linear story. You know, it doesn't deal with time as we've come to think of time. And yet there is a huge story of humanity that has a place for every origin story existing on the planet. They all exist in the context of this meta story, this complete, comprehensive story.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to tell me the story?
I can tell you. I can tell you the story.
So I can understand what you're saying.
So this is, it takes about 2 hours to go through this core mythology. But this story speaks about humanity as a galactic soul force. Mm-hmm. So in Damanhur, we speak about the creation of a universe happening when in the real, what we call the real, which is the place of absolute possibility of everything. So all intelligence, everything exists in the real without form. And in the real are a series of primal laws. So we speak about a universe forming when two of those primal laws intersect. And in that intersection, they're each changed. And a series of derivative laws are formed. So these derivative laws have a function in the real, and they have a diverse function in the world of form, where this new universe, these two laws have intersected and created, from our perspective, what we call the world of form.
Does that have to do with the time of the Big Bang, and does it follow?
It relates to the exactly
cosmogenesis story.
It does. And so at that point, when this new universe is formed, it's the universe of form, which has a series of universal laws. The universe of
they like the laws of physics.
The laws of physics. They're like the laws of physics, but it's this is esoteric physics. So we speak about the soul atom, for example.
I see.
The synchronicity is one of those laws. So it's a series of 9 laws that represent the derivative form of those 2 original primal laws. So in this world of form, as we know, the second law of thermodynamics is entropy. So the world of form has an overriding objective it's an entropic objective of remaining in stasis as form without the need for evolution or complexity. But into this closed system enters an absolute intelligence. And that absolute intelligence we think of as a primordial divinity. So it's not a God in the sense, or a divinity in the sense that we in religious or spiritual form look at as a divinity. It's an absolute intelligence that's existed in the real with a desire to now explore this new universe that's formed.
So did that entity form this?
It didn't form this.
No,
so the world of form
how
exists.
Did the form exist?
So the form existed by these 2 primal laws intersecting.
So the laws preceded the creator in some.
So the laws, so in the real exists all possibility, including these.
Like what kind of law? I mean, are they state? Can you state the law?
You can. So in our there's a book on esoteric physics where we go through each of these primal laws and then the derivative laws that are formed. So the derivative laws that are formed now are the governing factor in this universe. So when we look at our school of initiation, as initiates, we're studying these universal laws, and in a way that allow us to utilize those laws for the benefit of the evolution of humanity. So this primal intelligence has now entered this new universe that's been formed, and it fragments into all matter. So all matter now has what we would say is a divine spark, a piece of that divinity. And in the world of form, this primal intelligence is now essentially working with the objective of evolving into complexity. It begins this long journey in the world of form, where every experience is of value.
So where are we now in this story?
So in this story now, we're first of all, it's not linear, it's not chronological. So we're at a certain place in this nap of story. We're at a point where the forces of entropy, at a certain point, also anthropomorphized into entities with the objective of not evolution, but entropy. And this primal intelligence that entered, which is now also created, they're now anthropomorphized beings across the galaxy, not just humans on Earth, but galactic species whose objective is evolution. And there's been an expansion across the universe. And these beings have gained complexity, they've gained spiritual value, they've evolved, and they come into contact with the forces of entropy. And the forces of entropy, who have this opposing objective of remaining in stasis, not gaining complexity. And the soul force of humanity is contaminated by that. So there's an external entity that's battling the soul force of humanity, and now it's also infected the soul force of humanity. So now
that's the entropic force.
So that's the entropic force, which is both an external force and it's an element inside each of us. So we're essentially evolving and battling this force of entropy. And there were a series of great battles in the universe. And at a certain point, humanity defeated the forces of entropy and then faced a critical decision. So do we destroy this force that we've defeated, or do we consign it to a distant part of the galaxy?
The forces of entropy?
The forces of entropy.
Can I ask you a question in here? Because what inspired me way back in the 70s when I read the work of Nobel Prize winner Ilya Prigogine, who won the Nobel Prize for his study of dissipative structure. And the nature of the question that he was dealing with is, how does entropy or chaos turn to higher order for billions of years in this sequence?
Right.
Whatever other sequences there may be, but starting from the origin of creation, and you go from the single cell to the multi-cell and so on, up right now to you and
To
me sitting
complexity.
here.
Right.
And that actually the story that he told, that I understand there, is that chaos is essential for higher order.
For evolution.
In other words, entropy, that syntropy eats entropy.
Mm-hmm.
And the way syntropy eats entropy is, as the system becomes more complex and more disordered, like our current modern society,
Mm-hmm.
innovations are cropping up and have been cropping up for years everywhere. But at some point, according to this pattern, there is a nonlinear interaction of that which is innovative. Nonlinear interaction of innovative elements, and the system cooperates in its own self-transcendence. So for billions of years, this has been happening. And what I thought when I read this was, why don't we do that? We have innovations everywhere on this earth.
Right.
They're all still in silos. Why not try to connect that which is creative to a certain degree of interactive intensity, so that this dissipative structure model could help us self-transcend?
Exactly. Yes.
So that started the wheel of co-creation to some degree, which started many things in my teaching about conscious evolution. But currently, my attraction is to creating a web presence to tell the story
Mm-hmm.
of the planetary awakening
Mm-hmm.
through a unique self-symphony of everybody who's attracted, connecting. And that's my partner Mark Gaffney's phrase, unique self-symphony, through which a planetary awakening happens, with the wheel of co-creation as being a model for people to self-map and self-connect on internet as well as locally, such that we would contribute to the self-transcending quality of modern society. It's not going to happen through force.
No.
It's not going to happen through liberal democracy. If there is any truth to the timing factor of the crisis that we're facing, particularly climate change,
Yes.
but others, we don't have hundreds of years.
I honestly think we have 4 years.
So it's
to
very
create
short.
this shift.
So this happens to be in my own life cycle since I'm 86, 87, 88, 89. Okay, let's all of us, and I'm going to take some initiative
Mm-hmm.
to telling this story
Mm-hmm.
of a planetary awakening, and who wants to participate by connecting what they're created uniquely. So the symphony is the universal process of creation of higher order, which obviously is inherent in the dissipative structure model. So I'm just testing out this model, which is pretty scientific.
Right. Right.
As how entropy is significant. Now you're speaking of entropy in a very different way.
Well, I'm speaking
I
of entropy. I'm also speaking of entropy as the second law of thermodynamics.
Yeah,
Where
but
in
you're
a
saying
closed
this-
system,
Yeah.
in a closed system,
Right,
it's anomalous that evolution exists.
right, and we're not in a closed system.
We're not in a closed system.
that
So this is
obviously must be
indicative
so.
of the fact that an intelligence entered that closed system with an objective that's evolutionary. So this is this idea of this primal intelligence that entered into this new universe of form.
So one question I would have is, why does it have to enter in rather than being the source of it to begin with?
Well,
Or the source of these laws or these forms being something other than the creative intelligence of the universe.
in esoteric physics, so in our school of thought in esoteric physics, we think of this area of the real where all possibility exists. So universes are formed when really primal laws intersect. So they're intersecting, and the derivative laws are forming universes with diverse characteristics. So the universes are formed in our school of thought. It's not that the intelligence of that universe rises up out of that intersection of laws, but that the intelligences exist within that real, with the desire to explore each of these new universes that form.
So this is, okay, I'm trying to compare.
Right.
So I have some understanding. What you're saying is very esoteric.
This is
Totally
esoteric physics.
esoteric.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
so we have been going, the group I'm working with, on the idea the universe is a love story.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason you say it's a love story is that start with quarks. Quarks have to be attracted to quarks, particles to particles, allurement,
Mm-hmm.
attraction, all the way up from the simplest to the more complex to you and me sitting here.
Mm-hmm.
What is attracting us is that love force of eros,
Mm-hmm.
intrinsic to the universal evolutionary process. And the more you're aware of the eros within you, among you, between you, the more the planetary organism is infused with love. So the fulfillment of this particular version of the story would be the awakening of love at a planetary scale.
Well, it's interesting because we look at love, and Falco spoke about love in at various points in his
Mm-hmm.
teachings, and he spoke about the archetype of love having in this period of time been corrupted by these opposing forces.
Mm-hmm.
So the absolute archetype of love was usurped by these opposing forces, and we were left with the concept of falling in love.
Yeah.
Which
very
is
limited.
A corrupted archetype, essentially. So the idea of possession and, the need, the fulfillment that comes from, feeling we're you're my partner and I own you, those feelings are not the complete archetype of love.
No.
Love is in fact a substance. It's the glue that holds everything in the universe together.
Right.
So it's it's here, it's present.
So as you start to feel the love you're speaking of, how does it feel?
It's you're not disconnected from anything.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely connected to the whole.
So I'm trying to get into your feeling of being here
on this planet, here in this incarnation.
Even right this second.
My sense of
what's the feeling of being you with this understanding of reality?
The feeling of always being in exactly the right place at exactly the right time.
Mm-hmm.
For an emergence and an unfolding that I'm a piece of.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm a catalyst within.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
So my sense of mission in that is as a storyteller, and a storyteller that has it's quite interesting. The second incubator that we did, I had an author who channels a series of enlightened masters. And so in the incubator, I had not only the writer present, but also his enlightened masters present. And they kept chiming in during the incubator. And at a certain point, they said to me, what is your core objective? You need to define in one word what your core objective is. What's your intention with the project that you're working on? And I sat back. It didn't take me long because I'm very clear on this. My objective is to be a catalyst in this reawakening for people.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not just in the bigger project that I put out. It's if I'm standing in line at a restaurant speaking to the person in front of me, in my way of moving through the
wherever
world,
and ever, yes,
to be a catalyst for those individuals and for these collectives. So, Barbara, this is an extraordinary vision. And how do we get from here to there?
Right. I am going on a study of Ilya Prigogine, how nature has been getting from here to there for billions of years. And here to there is totally astonishing, from the mystery of the origin of creation all the way up to here. So I'm going from that here to there, here to there, here to there. So the here to there is connecting that which is going through this, just like you, in all its versions. The innovative, creative, loving members of humanity who are an evolving species, I think. And when this evolving species connects at a certain degree of connectivity, which we don't know exactly what that is, but let's say there are enough of us already, right here on Earth, when we're connected. So my current contribution to this is with my partners to be able to be a web presence on global media with the type of young people that can do things like attract to you, and they get millions of people. So it's not me making a long talk on this.
Right.
It's being able to do this, and then underneath this is the bigger story. And then underneath this is the innovators and creators and the wheels of co-creation. So I'm going to go for being a big-time storyteller.
Excellent.
And that's my contribution, is to awaken people to the story and to participating in it in their own unique way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay.